will Japan actually sell its submarines to Indonesia? A couple of months ago, the Indonesian Navy Chief of Staff confirmed that Japan is offering submarines and the Mogami frigate to Indonesia. If finalized, this transfer will mark one of the most significant strategic developments between Tokyo and Jakarta. While the proposal is still being reviewed and there's no final decision yet, could this unprecedented deal actually happen? Driven by Japan's loosened arms export restrictions and Indonesia's push for maritime deterrence, the potential submarine transfer has rapidly evolved from quiet exploration into high-level ministerial negotiations. This framework quickly crystallized during recent defense ministerial meetings, culminating in a new defense cooperation arrangement signed by both defense ministers. Indonesia has an urgent existential reason to see this deal approved. Submarines are the ultimate tool for policing its vast archipelagic waters and critical choke points from the volatile North Natuna Sea to the vital Malacca and Sunda Straits. To secure these waters, the Indonesian Navy has long dreamed of maintaining a strategic baseline of at least 12 operational submarines. Instead, Indonesia is facing a dangerous capability gap. Following the tragic loss of KRI Nanggala in 2021, the fleet was severely depleted. Today, the Navy relies on just 4 active boats, the 45-year-old KRI Chakra, and 3 Korean-designed Nagapasa-class submarines, a class that suffered its own share of early teething problems. When we account for dry dock overhauls, maintenance, and crew rotations, Indonesia is left with just 1 or 2 active submarines to defend its entire maritime domain. Indonesia's multi-billion-dollar contract for 2 Scorpene Evolved submarines is a massive step forward, but those boats are 7 to 10 years away from active service. If the aging Chakra is forced to retire tomorrow, Indonesia will face a decade-long submarine capability gap. With a fierce submarine race heating up across the region, Indonesia cannot afford to wait. It must find a way to play catch-up and rebalance power right now. Acquiring submarines from an entirely new source and doing it quickly is a pragmatic strategy to resolve the immediate crisis facing the Indonesian Navy. However, before crossing the finish line on this historic Japanese offer, the deal will depend entirely on at least 4 factors: alignment with operational needs, fiscal budget capabilities, technology transfer, and Indonesia's strategic national interest. So, what exactly is Japan offering to Indonesia? As we discussed in my previous video, the GMSDF operates 3 distinct classes, the Oyashio, the Soryu, and the cutting-edge Taige. We also learned that Japan runs a highly unique operational cycle, commissioning a brand new submarine every single year and retiring older boats after roughly 2 decades of service, completely skipping complex midlife upgrades. And Indonesian defense officials have spent the last few months personally touring and boarding these boats in Japan, particularly Oyashio-class GS Narusio and Taige-class GS Jingge. Since Japanese shipyards are still busy fulfilling local demand, and I'm fully aware that those in the Japanese submarine industry are guarding its secret technology tightly, we can pretty much write off the Taige class being sold off to Indonesia. And because the Soryu is the irrepressible backbone of the current Japanese deterrence, we can cross that off the list too. So logically, the math points to just 1 candidate. Out of the 11 Oyashio-class submarines ever built, 3 have been decommissioned and 2 have been converted as training submarines. And according to one of our Japanese brothers, the decommissioned submarines are not being sent to the scrapyard. Instead, they are being quietly moored at Kure Port and kept preserved. And by following Japan's strict operational cycle, the next boat set to retire from active service is GS Narusio, the exact submarine the Indonesian Navy Chief recently boarded. Combine Narusio with 3 already retired subs currently sitting idle at Kure, Indonesia could potentially have 3 to 4 boats ready to bridge the capability gap and double its active submarine fleet in an instant. However, buying decommissioned submarines from Japan isn't like buying used cars. You cannot just hand over the keys and sell them back to Jakarta. They probably have another 15 to 20 years of service life left, but because most of the decommissioned Oyashio boats have been placed into a preserved reserve status, they must undergo a thorough and probably multi-year technical resurrection. First up is demothballing the submarines. When a Japanese submarine is decommissioned, it's not simply just being abandoned. It undergoes a strict preservation protocol to prevent degradation. The systems are drained of fluids, the interior is climate controlled to stop rust, and sensitive software is wiped clean. Reactivating the boat means towing it into a dry dock for a comprehensive structural inspection. Every piping, fluid line, and electrical wiring must be flushed, tested, and if necessary replaced to ensure the submarine is structurally safe to dive. Second comes the power system. When a submarine goes into reserve, its battery banks are usually removed. Indonesia will have to buy and install new batteries to restore its underwater life. At the same time, the engine will probably have to be broken down to be inspected and cleaned to ensure reliability during long-endurance missions. The third step involves deep systems integration. The Oyashio's onboard combat systems are tailored strictly for the GMSDF. Japanese engineers must strip out classified systems before export. I don't even know if there's an English or Indonesian language options in their systems. And finally, there's the human element. The Oyashio is a completely new submarine in the Indonesian Navy fleet, meaning Indonesian crews will have to spend months in Japan undergoing intensive training to learn the specific handling characteristics, safety protocols, and damage control procedures of the class. Looking back at Japan's past submarine campaigns, I'm surprised that Japan was the one who initiated the submarine transfer to Indonesia. The Mogami, I get it, since it's the first Japanese-made equipment intentionally marketed for the export market. But the highly classified submarine? Then, I kinda understand Japan's motivation to do that. As I mentioned in my last video, Japan's greatest strategic anxiety is the potential for a conflict where it stands isolated. Japan views the intensifying maritime pressure and aggressive gray zone tactics by China in the East and South China Seas as a shared threat to the region's shipping lanes. By equipping Indonesia, which controls vital maritime choke points, Japan tries to decentralize regional deterrence. A more capable Indonesian Navy serves as a natural counterbalance that protects shared interests in freedom of navigation without forcing Jakarta into a formal military alliance. Even with Japan's relaxed arms export rules, sailing a brand new submarine like the Taige can look highly aggressive on the world stage and trigger immense backlash not only from its rival China but also from Japan's domestic pacifist public. Transferring decommissioned boats can change that perception, framing it as a capability-building security assistance program rather than a high-profile offensive arms sale. But make no mistake, a deal with Japan is just a bridge. If this proposal clears, Indonesia must remember that second-hand boats are not a final answer. Indonesia's primary focus and naval resources must remain firmly locked onto the primarily objective, the Scorpene Evolve program. While acquiring two French-designed submarines is an excellent start, two boats are simply not enough to secure Indonesia's vast archipelago. Only by steadily expanding the Scorpene fleet and mastering local construction can Indonesia truly achieve independent, long-term underwater deterrence. What do you think about the Japanese submarine proposal to Indonesia? Should Indonesia take this over? Also, what do you think the type will be? Share with us in the comment section below. Thank you for watching everyone. I'll see you in the next one.